Well, even by LCR standards, yesterday was a very busy day. And it started over at the Waymakers Youth Shelter. We had a nice turnout for those who were doing our day of service, part of a larger community day of service. So thank you for folks that came out and volunteered. And I think between our church, King of Glory, and community members, there were a good 20 plus people there and worked for a couple hours. And look how fresh they look, some of them here in the front. So that's a wonderful way for us to come together and beautify spaces that are meant to be healing places in our community. And Michelle and I co-led that, because then I had to leave for a funeral, and she was going to manage all of that, so I appreciate that. And it's funny, the funeral was about an hour away, so I went up to the funeral, and it was a young girl in her 20s who was burying her mother. And I knew her when she was a little girl at another parish. And I met her boyfriend, and I go, "So where are you at?" He goes, "Oh, I live in Huntington Beach." And I go, "You do?" He goes, "Yeah, I live right off Garfield and Magnolia." And I went, "You do?" I go, "Do you ever go to Rip Pizza?" He goes, "Oh, I love Rip Pizza." So I said, "We'll meet over there." But he works for the school district, and the two of them are getting, so it's so funny because they're getting together, and they'll probably get married, and she'll move down here, and then it's funny how that works that way. And then yesterday we had Jane's service in the afternoon, and it wasn't really a service. The kids said, "Well, let's describe it more like a cocktail party." It was a little bit of that. It was sort of a wake and a cocktail party and a time of joy. And what it was is she really wanted to say thank you to the people who were there and the people who were her friends and family. And you might even see some people here today that have temporary tattoos. I know, Bert, hold up your tattoo. Oh, there we go. Lorna's showing holding up all their tattoos. That was lovely. And then the day wasn't over yet. So we had the day of service, we had two funerals, and then last night was the McKenna Clare Foundation. And if you know McKenna Clare Foundation, that's for pediatric brain cancer. It was founded in Southeast Huntington Beach. And Ryder's mom, and if you know Ryder from our school, who has that pediatric brain cancer, she spoke. And she did a beautiful job. You imagine standing in front of a room of hundreds of people. And the theme was the Olympics. So you're dressed in hundreds of people that look so silly the way we were all dressed. And she spoke from the heart and did a beautiful job. But she commented on the importance of the preschool and the importance of this church in the journey that they're on. And that's important that you know that she, and that wasn't prompted. We didn't go, "Hey, go ahead, hey, Tara, say something about the church," She goes, "I want to tell people this." And it just goes to show how much your support has meant to their family. So, support from the school, spiritual support, financial support, everything that has been done to help them. And she just posted a picture. It was kind of a heartbreaking picture on Thursday or Friday, because his twin brother, Izzy, Ryder's twin brother, he asked his mom, he said, "Mom, can we stop by the church and pray?" But the church was locked up because no one was here. So there's a picture of this little boy sitting outside the church praying outside those locked doors so he could pray for his brother and his family. So I sent that to Cassie, and I had sort of, like the emoji with the tears. I go, "Oh my gosh, look at this, that they posted this." But it's a reminder that this is a house of prayer, and it's meant to be a house of prayer for God's people. That's actually going to be the theme of the National Day of Prayer. So there's going to be a prayer breakfast in Huntington Beach. They ran out of people to speak, so they're asking me to speak, so I'll be the speaker. And that's the theme, United in Prayer. And this shows you the time that we're living in. They said the theme was going to be united in peace, but we felt that was too controversial. And I go, okay, if we can't be united in peace, we've got we're not going to be united in prayer. But I go, whatever. So I think, because they don't want it to be conflicted and controversial. So I'll make sure that I talk about all the ways we're divided. But it's important because we need prayer to be the healing and reconciling work of God. So anyhow, thank you to everyone who helped with setting up for Jane's service. Thank you for everyone that helped volunteer. Thank you for people that have supported Ryder and his family. All of that was on display yesterday. Now, I'm sure some of you woke up this morning and you said, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe it. It's Good Shepherd Sunday. I've been waiting, This is one of my favorite times of the year." Or maybe you came to church and you looked at it and you go, "Oh, okay." I mean, to be honest, it doesn't mean that much because we're not in a pastoral world necessarily. Very few of us have sheep. If any of you have sheep, I don't know if any of you grew up raising sheep, or I know some of you grew up on farms, but it's an image that's a very ancient image, and it's a very central image. It's funny, when they study children in religious education, and we're not talking about what people think, but when they just observe children, one of the images, if not the primary image, that young children respond to is Jesus as the Good Shepherd. And you don't even have to tell them about Jesus, you just tell them what the Good Shepherd's like, and they're immediately drawn to a person who lives and loves that way. And so actually, the Good Shepherd is something that is tied into how we were made. Of course, that makes sense, because if you know the imagery, we're the sheep and God's the shepherd. But it's a Sunday that it can be easy to pass over, because it sounds like one of those religious Sundays. Well, yeah, the Good Shepherd in the churches, they sing that beautiful psalm, that setting of the psalm that we sang, Psalm 23. This is all very religious, sort of Christian imagery, but it's so important. Now, one way we could delineate and say, why is it important, is we could have a Sunday called Bad Shepherd Sunday. And we could talk about all the ways that shepherds are bad. And now, again, we're not talking about sheep. Now we're not talking about the quality of farmhands, because, of course, the Bible constantly uses the image of shepherding to talk about the quality of leadership, the quality of leadership of God's people. Now, on one hand, that includes the professional class of people like myself, where this is our job, our vocation, our calling, and God has very hard things to say for some of us hired hands. And there are bad shepherds who they're causing more problems for the sheep than if they had no shepherd at all. So you see that in the prophets talking about, God's people, finally I'm going to have to come and be their shepherd because all their shepherds are bad. But you can think about that quality of leadership outside of the professional ranks of the clergy for yourselves. What does Christian leadership look like for you? We see that in the service projects we do. We see that in the work we do with those who are mourning and grieving, those who are sick. We see that in our families and our friendships. You're all exerting some form of leadership, and we have to ask ourselves, is it good or bad? And of course, the goodness and the badness can really be measured diagnostically by the health of the sheep, by the safety of the sheep. How healthy and how well are the sheep doing? Now, the difficulty is Jesus only gives us one criterion for good shepherding. He doesn't go, I'm the good shepherd and here's my resume. Here are my top 3 attributes of good shepherding. There's one thing. I lay down my life for the sheep. And they're like, okay, well, what else? I'm good at talking. I can fundraise. I put on great parties. None of those. There's only one criterion. I lay down my life for the sheep, which means I'm all in on this. And this is an interesting question for our quality of leadership and discipleship, which is, how much of it is we're all in? Well, I think most of us would say, well, no, it's very important to me, and the values of my faith guide my life. And then you go, okay, well, when is there going to be a time where we can really see how all in we are on this project? And this is where Jesus starts to talk about the hired hands. Because the hired hands aren't all in. The hired hands are like, hey, look, this is just for my, I need a paycheck, or I really want to be a writer, but I can't, so I have to watch these sheep during the day. And he says they're not there for the sheep, and they're not there to lay down their lives, they're there for themselves. And some of you have been in churches. Mary Catherine and I were talking about part of this church years and years ago, decades ago, where there was a problem with the pastor. And you know what that's like. Some of you know exactly what that's like. Sometimes pastors know what that's like. It's a struggle to say, well, this is my job, but I need to have a life. I need to do, how do you make a balance for all these things? And Jesus doesn't go, I am the good shepherd because I have a really good work-life balance. And you go, well, Jesus, do we really have to lay down our life? Well, what does it even mean to lay down your life? Well, he says that the hired hands leave when one thing happens. They see the wolf coming. That is a powerful phrase. The wolf is coming. So when Jesus talks about good shepherding, when Jesus talks about laying down his life, when Jesus talks about the quality of bad leadership, it becomes very apparent when the wolves appear. Now, Nick, show this picture. This is a lovely icon that a person drew, and we're going to pull it up on the screen here in a second. This is a good image for Good Shepherd Sunday. An icon of the Lamb of God in the mouths of wolves. And so we'll just kind of leave that up there. If you don't like what I'm saying, you can just look at the picture and reflect on that. But what happens when you live in a time of wolves? Now, for some of our Germans here, you'll know that they name, wolves are very powerful, so they have lots of wolf names. Like Mozart. Mozart's first name was Wolfgang. He walks like a wolf. He's a wolf walker. They're German writers, and Wolfheart. They have the heart of a wolf. You know, the German military used to love having the wolf pack and all these different names. You know, the idea of wolves being dangerous, being powerful. Like when I was doing live performing, one of my friends, we were in a sketch group together, and I ran into her on Melrose Boulevard. And this is after we had finished performing. And I go, what have you been up to? She says, she says, you know how much I love animals. I go, yes, I know how much you love animals. And she says, I've been working at a wolf sanctuary in Minnesota. And I go, a wolf sanctuary? Oh, she said, I thought it would be so wonderful to see all the wolves. And I go, well, how did that go? She goes, well, I was there, and the sun was going down, and the guy I worked with said, we have to go right now. And she said, why? But we're having such a good time with the wolves. She goes, when the sun goes down, you don't want to be around the wolves. They will kill you. They will eat you. And she goes, I know, but I'm so good with animals. And the guy goes, these are wolves. They will eat you. And she goes, okay. You know, so she goes, it was different than I thought it was going to be. You know, I think she thought it was going to be like, I go among the wolves and become their mom. And then she realized, I go among the wolves and become their dinner if I'm not careful. And this is the problem with the sheep, is Jesus says, I am a shepherd, you are my sheep, but there are also wolves. And what happens when we see the wolves, and what happens when the wolves come among the flock? And actually, it's even just one wolf. In this case, it's a pack of wolves. But in the gospel this morning, it's just one wolf. It says the hired hand flees, and then the wolf scatters and injures the sheep. Now, I think all of you have been in moments where the wolves have showed up, or the wolf has showed up. All of you have been in moments where something that was a protected space, or protected people, or whatever, that protection was lost. And the wolf got to do whatever the wolf wanted to do until the wolf was done. The wolf could have been in your family. The wolf could have been at your job. The wolf could have been in your church. All of you have had experiences where some human community that you belonged to that was life-giving got broken and you had to scatter because the wolf ran amok among the sheep. Maybe the hired hand saw the wolf coming and said, yo, I'm out of here. I don't wrestle wolves. Or the hired hand went down with the sheep, but you find yourself in a moment of carnage where all you have are a bunch of torn up sheep, a bunch of blood, a bunch of injury, and people are trying to put their lives back together. This is why Jesus says, I am the good shepherd, and I will lay down my sheep, because I know what happens when the wolves show up. And this is really important that we think about what it means on this Good Shepherd Sunday to have a good shepherd, because one, you are prohibited from becoming a wolf. Do not be a wolf in another person's life. Meaning, don't show up with your teeth bared and start destroying things that are innocent. Don't show up in other people's lives and start tearing apart good and peaceful community. You cannot be a wolf. Though, in fact, we know from the gospel story, Jesus at the end is the only lamb. That's why this is so good. Sometimes, no, don't go be a wolf. Well, that's like telling a pack of wolves, don't go act like a wolf. You know, we all have that in us, that wolf nature, that predatory nature, that violent nature. That's why this image is so good. And Jesus doesn't just say, okay, you know what? You're wolves, I'm going to bring in a bigger wolf. That's what people keep saying to him. Jesus, please, can't you just call in the airstrike? Can't you just call down the fire from heaven? Can't we just show them that you have more power than they have? Even in the Garden of Gethsemane, when they show up with their little police unit, and Jesus goes, now if I wanted to, this could be over in a second, but that's not what I'm doing. I'm going to lay down my life, and I'm going to take it back up again. And this is why it's so powerful, and why that picture is so powerful of the Lamb who is at peace, because we know at the very end of the Bible, in the book of Revelation, when they say, behold the Lion of Judah, they don't see a lion. John says, and behold, I saw one who was like a lamb who was slain. The slain lamb becomes the primary image of God's victory. And the lion-hearted nature of Jesus is shown by the lamb who was slain. That is the primary image, because the laying down of the life is what defangs and disempowers the wolves, so that in fact the sheep will finally be safe. So, live into your sheephood. Be a sheep. I won't even say be a good sheep. Notice, Jesus doesn't talk about the quality of the sheep. Jesus only talks about the quality of the shepherd. So this isn't even a moral sermon to say, go be a good sheep. Don't be a wolf, be a good sheep. We're probably going to be wolf-like, and we're probably going to be middling sheep at best. But give thanks that you have a good shepherd. That's the point of this Sunday. In the midst of a world where wolves come and the people who are to protect do not protect, in the midst of the world where wolves come and they tear and they scatter and they injure, we ask ourselves, is someone going to do something about this? When is this going to change? And Jesus says, I'm going to be the good shepherd. Not a good shepherd among others. I will be the good shepherd. I will guide you. I will keep you. I will protect you. I will heal you. I will put you back together. And then finally, I will be in the wolf's mouth. And when the wolves are done chewing on me, I will return, and I will be victorious in my love. This is how God overcomes the presence of wolves. Not by a constant escalation of violence, going, well, you want to play this game? I can play this game too. Let's take off the gloves and see what happens, or put on the gloves, or load the clip, or whatever you're going to do. Rather, Jesus goes deeply into the way of being the vulnerable sheep, the offering, the Passover lamb, who makes a way from the world of death and the world of wolves to the world of life. And this is why it's so important when you look at the activities of the church. What we're trying to do is be ambassadors of this reconciliation that Jesus has brought. If we're not going to engage in wolf-like behavior, then what are we going to be doing? We're going to be doubling down on the way of the Lamb and the values of the Good Shepherd. And every opportunity we have to bring together separated friends, every opportunity we have to reconcile true enemies, every opportunity we have to provide health and healing, every opportunity we have to say where we've contributed to that and we need to stop. All of those become opportunities for us to live out our Christian life. Not because we're trying to get somewhere with God. The Good Shepherd's already taken care of that. It's the same thing that Jane told us yesterday. It's our way of simply telling God, thank you. Amen.